The overnight ferry from Holyhead to Dublin left the quay at 20:45 precisely, as it had done every evening for the last 43 years. The MV Connaught was not the newest vessel on the Irish Sea. Her hull showed the scars of countless crossings, her funnel streaked with rust that no amount of paint could hide, but she was reliable. Passengers liked her for that. They liked the smell of diesel and salt, the low thrum of engines that felt like a heartbeat underfoot, the way the lounge lights dimmed after midnight so people could sleep in their recliners or booked cabins. Tonight the crossing was booked at 83% capacity. Families returning home for the weekend, lorry drivers on their regular run, a handful of students, and one woman who had paid cash for a single cabin in the name of M. Riley. No one named M. Riley boarded. Berth 7B was on the port side, midships, one of the cheaper inside cabins with no window, just a bunk, a fold-down sink, and a narrow wardrobe. The reservation card remained slotted in the brass holder outside the door. The key card in its paper sleeve lay on the small table inside, untouched. Yet the berth was occupied from the moment the gangway was pulled away. The woman who sat on the lower bunk wore a navy duffel coat buttoned to the throat, collar turned up against a chill that existed only in her bones. Her hair was cut short, the color of damp ash, and she kept her hands folded in her lap, fingers laced, thumbs moving in slow circles as though winding an invisible watch. She had not spoken to anyone since the check-in desk. She had not eaten the complimentary sandwich the steward offered. She simply boarded, found her cabin, and closed the door with the quiet finality of someone who had already said goodbye to the world outside. Her name was not M. Riley. It was Siobhan Doyle. She was 34, 5'6" in the boots she refused to remove, 118 pounds on the scales she had stepped on that morning for the last time. She had dyed her hair 2 nights earlier in a Travelodge sink outside Chester, using a box from a service station pharmacy. She had left her phone in a bin at Euston Station. Screen shattered, SIM card snapped between her teeth. In the left pocket of the duffel coat were 3 things: a folded €50 note, a half-pack of nicotine gum, and a small brass cabin key attached to a plastic tag that read Berth 7B, MV Connaught, March 14, 2018. She had never booked that sailing. The key had belonged to her sister, Maeve, who disappeared from this exact cabin on the night of March 14, 2018. Maeve had checked in alone, ordered a pot of tea from room service, spoken briefly to the steward about the weather, and then, between the time the ferry cleared the breakwater and the moment the night watch did its 2 o'clock rounds, had simply ceased to exist. The bunk was still made. The tea was cold but untouched. The bathroom mirror was fogged from a shower that had run for exactly 11 minutes according to the water meter. On the pillow lay a single sheet of company notepaper with 3 words written in Maeve's hurried, looping hand: "Don't follow me." Irish ferries searched for 9 days. They interviewed every crew member, reviewed every camera angle, dredged the wake for 40 miles. They found nothing. No one had seen Maeve leave the cabin. No one had seen her on deck. The case was quietly marked "Missing at Sea," presumed suicide, and filed away. Siobhan kept the key because it was the last physical thing her sister had touched. She kept it in the same envelope as the sympathy cards she had never opened. Tonight she intended to use it. She had no plan beyond reaching Dublin, walking to the ferry terminal, boarding the next sailing back if necessary, or simply sitting in berth 7B until the ferry docked and then, whatever came after. If nothing happened, she would leave the key on the pillow and walk into the Irish Sea until the cold took her. If something did happen, well, that was the part she had not allowed herself to imagine. The ferry cleared the harbor mouth. The engines deepened their note. The lounge announcements faded into the background hum. Siobhan sat motionless, listening to the creak of the hull as the Connaught met the first swell of the open sea. A soft knock sounded on the cabin door. She did not answer. The knock came again, polite, patient. "Steward, miss. Just checking if everything's all right with the berth." Siobhan closed her eyes. The door opened anyway. The man who stepped inside was in his late 50s. White shirt, dark tie. The embroidered name tag reading, Declan Senior Steward. He had the calm, weathered face of someone who had spent 30 years reassuring nervous passengers that the motion was perfectly normal. In his left hand, he held a small electronic manifest tablet. In his right, a master key card. He looked at the reservation holder. He looked at Siobhan. He smiled, small, understanding, the smile of a man who had already read the next 10 pages of the story. "Evening," he said. "I'm Declan. You're in berth 7B. Siobhan's thumbs stopped circling. "Yes," she said. Declan closed the door behind him with his hip and leaned against it. "The name on the manifest is M. Riley," he said. "But you're not M. Riley. You're Siobhan Doyle, younger sister, from Sligo originally, moved to Manchester after the disappearance. Left your flat 4 days ago. Left your phone in a bin outside Euston. Bought the ticket in cash at the Holyhead terminal using a rail card that expired in 2019. You're not trying to run away. You're trying to finish what Maeve started." Siobhan felt the cabin tilt. Not from the sea, but from something inside her chest. "How do you know my name?" Declan tapped the tablet. "I know everyone who boards this ship," he said. "It's my job. Has been since 1997. I used to be just a steward. Then in 2018 they created a new role. Very quiet, very small. They called it Manifest Continuity. My job is to walk the corridors after sailing, check every booked cabin, make sure the right people are in them. Or rather, make sure the wrong people aren't." He sat down on the fold-down stool by the sink, knees creaking. "Maeve was in this exact berth the night she disappeared," he continued. "I brought her the tea myself. She looked like you. Same eyes, same way of holding her hands. She thanked me, said the crossing was smoother than she remembered. Then she closed the door. When I did my 2 o'clock rounds, the key card was on the pillow and the cabin was empty. The bed still made, the shower still wet. But Maeve was gone." He reached into his breast pocket and produced an identical brass key. Same tag, same berth number, same date. "She left it for me," he said. "Or the ship left it for me. I've been carrying it ever since." Siobhan stared at the key. "Why?" "Because the Connet remembers," Declan said. "Every passenger, every berth, every name on every reservation. When someone leaves a piece of themselves behind, a key, a note, a hair in the shower drain, the ship keeps it, and when the conditions are right, full moon, certain wind direction, certain number of souls on board, it uses that piece to bring someone else. Someone who can close the circle." He opened the tablet and turned it so she could see the screen. A list scrolled upward. March 14th, 2018, Maeve Doyle, berth 7B, Holyhead, Dublin. Disappeared. Key left on pillow. July 22nd, 2018, female, mid-30s, berth 5A. Disappeared between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock. November 17th, 2018, female, berth 12C. Left a note. "Tell my sister I'm sorry." April 3rd, 2019, female, berth 7B again. Same coat, same key, never reached Dublin. The list went on. 27 entries in 5 years. All women, all mid-30s, all traveling alone, all leaving something behind. "And now you," Declan said. October 2023, berth 7B, Siobhan Doyle, sister of Maeve. Same coat, same key in the pocket, same route, same intention. Siobhan's voice was barely above the engine thrum. What happens when we dock in Dublin? If you get off, Declan said. Nothing. You walk to the terminal. You catch the train home. You tell yourself you tried. If you're lucky, the dreams stop after a few months. If you're unlucky, you'll find yourself buying another ticket 6 months from now. Same ship, same berth, and the cycle continues. He paused as the ship rolled gently on a larger swell. If you stay in the cabin, he continued, the ship decides. It's been doing this since the 1980s, longer than I've worked here. Every few crossings it takes someone. Sometimes it gives someone back. Changed, quieter, but alive. But it always balances. 1 in, 1 out. Or 2 in, none out. Depends on how much it needs to remember. The cabin lights flickered once as the ship met a crosswave. Declan stood. I have to check the other decks, he said. Make sure no one else is in the wrong berth tonight. When I come back, you need to decide. Get off in Dublin and live with the not knowing. Or stay here and take your chances with whatever is waiting on the other side of that door. He looked at her for a long moment. I'll be back before we pass the Kish lighthouse, he said. Think about it. He left. Siobhan sat alone. She took the key from her pocket and laid it on the bunk beside the other one. They gleamed under the reading light like twin coins. She stared at them until the reflection blurred. The ship rolled again. The wardrobe door creaked open an inch, then closed. She heard the soft slap of water against the hull, regular, patient, like someone knocking from the outside. She thought about Maeve's last phone call, made at 21:17 on March 14, 2018. I'm on the ferry, Maeve had said. I need to clear my head. Don't worry. I'll be home tomorrow. Siobhan had laughed. Bring me back some Tato crisps. Maeve had not laughed back. I love you, she said. Then the line went dead. Siobhan thought about the police officer who had sat in her kitchen and said, sometimes people just need to disappear. Love. The sea takes what it wants. She thought about the nights she had sat in Maeve's flat wearing this exact coat, smelling her sister's perfume on the collar, pretending Maeve was in the next room watching television. She picked up both keys. She stood. She walked to the cabin door and opened it. The corridor outside was narrower than she remembered. The carpet was the same deep blue, but the lighting had dimmed to a soft amber. Every cabin door was closed. No voices, no footsteps, only the low thrum of the engines and the occasional creak of the hull. She walked toward the stairwell. Declan was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, leaning on the handrail. You've decided, he said. It was not a question. I want to see her, Siobhan said. He nodded once. Then we stay below decks. He led her down a service staircase she had not noticed on boarding. The steps were metal, painted gray, the handrail cold. The air grew thicker, salt, diesel, something sweeter, like old flowers left in water too long. They descended 2 levels, then 3, until the ship's normal passenger decks were far above. At the bottom was a corridor identical to the one outside berth 7B, but longer, much longer. Doors stretched away on both sides, every one marked 7B. The numbers glowed faintly in the dim light. Declan stopped. This is where I get off, he said. I've done my part. The ship needed a witness. That's all I ever was. He held out Maeve's key. Siobhan took it. She walked down the corridor. The doors were all the same. She tried the first one. Inside was a cabin exactly like hers. Bunk made, tea tray untouched, mirror fogged. On the pillow sat a woman who looked like Maeve but older, eyes tired, hair longer. She looked up and smiled. You came, she said. Siobhan closed the door quickly. She tried the next door. Another cabin. Another woman, shorter hair, scar on the cheek she did not remember Maeve having. She was writing on notepaper, "Don't follow me." Siobhan kept walking. At the end of the corridor stood one door without a number. The brass plate simply read, Berth 7B, MV Connet, all crossings. She fitted the key into the lock, turned. She opened the door. The cabin beyond was larger than it had any right to be. The bunk was gone. In its place stood a single chair facing a wall of windows that looked out onto open sea at night. But the sea was wrong. Too still, too black, no horizon. On the chair sat Maeve. She wore the same clothes she had disappeared in. Her face was exactly as Siobhan remembered, but her eyes were older, centuries older. You took your time, Maeve said. Siobhan's legs gave out. She sank to her knees. I looked everywhere, she whispered. No seats, no berths, only a single corridor, long, narrow, lit by a single bulb at the far end. The walls were paneled in dark wood. The carpet was deep red. At the end of the corridor stood a door. Room 312, the Imperial Hotel, Aberdeen. The brass plate gleamed. Nora walked toward it. Richard stayed where he was. This is where I get off, he said. I've done my part. The train needed a witness. That's all I ever was. He held out Margot's key. Nora took it. She fitted it into the lock. Turned easily. She opened the door. The room beyond was exactly as Margot had left it. Bed made. Tray on the desk. Sea base untouched. Sancerre warm. Creme brulee cracked. Bathroom mirror still fogged. On the pillow lay a single sheet of hotel notepaper. Nora stepped inside. The door closed behind her. She heard the lock click. She walked to the bed and sat down. She waited. Minutes passed. Or hours. Time felt elastic. Then the bathroom door opened. Margot stepped out. She wore the same gray dress she had worn the night she disappeared. Her hair was longer. Her eyes were the same gray as Nora's. She smiled, small, sad, almost kind. You came, she said. Nora felt tears on her cheeks. I had to. Margot sat beside her. You shouldn't have, she said. But I'm glad you did. They sat in silence for a long time. Outside, the train began to move again. Slowly at first, then faster. The sound of wheels on rails grew distant. Margot reached over and took Nora's hand. The train will take us where it needs us, she said. It always does. Nora looked at the window. There was no reflection, only darkness, and somewhere far ahead, another platform waiting under cold sodium lights. Another seat reserved. Another name on a card. The train kept going. It always kept going.